And then you have his friend, the Maserati Marxist over there in the...
Is that your car?
No.
And what do you make of their criticism?
The Conservatives are silly. They do silly things all the time. They lie all the time. And one of the things that I... No, not at all. It's not mine at all. It's someone else's.
Freeland says a lot without saying anything. Jagmeet Singh gets a new nickname, and one of Trudeau's cabinet stabs him in the back.
Let's take a look.
This week, Prime Minister has lost control of everything. He's lost control of the borders, lost control of immigration, lost control of spending, and now has lost control of his cabinet and party. In fact, his foreign minister is now announcing her leadership campaign in the New York Times. The Liberal leader of the province of Ontario has announced she's against his quadrupling carbon tax. The Liberal Premier of Newfoundland is against his job-killing energy cap, and 20 of his MPs want to fire him. How is it that he clings to power when he's lost control?
Yeah. Oh my word, it is true.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because Jagmeet Singh was in front of the House of Commons right before question period, and he was taking a couple questions, and he was asked like 2 or 3 questions about his Maserati. He's like, oh, that's not mine. And then he was asked, well, whose is it? Somebody else's. And they're like, well, do you drive it? He's like, well, the Conservatives always lie.
The Conservatives are criticizing you for driving a Maserati. Is that your car?
No.
And what do you make of their criticism?
The Conservatives are silly. They do silly things all the time. They lie all the time. And one of the things that I... No, not at all. It's not mine at all. It's someone else's. They voted against... I have nothing to do with it. I was not driving it. I have nothing to do with it.
So, I think we just proved that the Conservatives don't always lie because holy moly.
I did not know about this until Pierre said it.
Yeah, it is insane. So Melanie Joly is basically saying, yeah, I'm Trudeau's successor. I'm going to position myself as leader of the Liberal Party of Canada.
I mean, I can think of worse leaders, but I could probably think of better.
I could think of probably a lot better, and they're on the conservative side.
I was going to say they're all conservatives, so...
We can all see that the leader of the opposition has trouble with the ideas that individuals might have different perspectives, and that might be a good thing for a robust political party like the Liberal Party of Canada and all its partners across the country. The leader of the opposition refuses to let his backbenchers or any of his team members have any opinions at all. Indeed, he sanctioned them and wrote a letter in their name decrying their advocacy for their own citizens in their communities when it came to delivering money for mayors for housing from coast to coast to coast. He stands for muzzling his MPs. We stand for diversity.
Man, I feel like I'm going to have to explain this every single question period. Number one, we're going to put a link in the description to the CBC hit piece, I suppose you could call it that, where the CBC is saying that there were 17 Conservatives who went to the Minister of Housing to ask for housing, and then Pierre got upset with them, etc., etc., etc. Check out that video if you haven't seen it already, because that explains everything. It's not the way Trudeau is describing it. Surprise, surprise.
Well, and then he has one of his own MPs, Chad Collins, who's no hero, but he stands up and he says, oh, well, I had an opinion that I didn't want to vote for the $250 check, and I was threatened with consequences. And he's gone on multiple news stations to actually talk about this. So what are you talking about? And Chad even said, yeah, all that crap that Trudeau was saying in the House of Commons, that's what he does with the Liberal Party.
Right, but this is a normal function of a political party. That's why people join a party as opposed to being an independent. I mean, that's one of the benefits anyways. But when you're with a party, you are expected to vote with the party on certain things. It's called a 3-line whip. So when the leader says that, okay, you vote yes on this bill or yes on this motion, etc., you have to follow it if it's a 3-line whip. If it's a 1-line whip, that means you get to vote however you want.
It's a free vote.
Right, a free vote. You vote based on your constituents, but key votes are 3-line whip, and you have to vote the way the leader wants you to. It doesn't matter the party. It's not just the Conservatives that do this. It's the Liberals that do this as well. The NDP, the Bloc, everybody, every party does this. So the fact that Trudeau is trying to twist this and make it seem like it's something only the Conservatives are doing, or that the Conservatives are wrong for doing it, well, that's just not true.
Diversity of opinions, I guess that means the opinion that he should not be prime minister. That's the predominant opinion among liberals across the country. On the front page of the New York Times, you'd think the foreign minister would be fighting Trump's tariffs. Instead, she's fighting for her boss's job, where she's described in the headline as a possible successor after she sat down for a photo shoot and made the case. This on top of a Liberal leader in Ontario who's against his quadrupling carbon tax, a Liberal premier in Newfoundland who opposes his job-killing energy cap. Why won't the Prime Minister get the point? His party doesn't want him anymore.
Yeah. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Let's talk, Mr. Speaker, about standing up for Canada. One of the things that we've seen throughout our history, when Canada is threatened, when it's challenged with a crisis, when people want ill of Canadians pull together across partisan stripes, across backgrounds, across the country to stand up for our neighbors, to stand up for Canadians. That's certainly what we were able to do as a country 8 years ago.
This is just gross listening to this man talk. Like,
What happened 8 years ago?
yeah, that's what I want to know.
Are you trying to say 4 years ago, Trudeau?
Maybe.
Where Canadians were forced to stay in their homes?
Because 8 years ago, we had a Liberal government, and I guess we pulled together and suffered through it for this long.
Yeah, like it was 2016. That was literally the first year you were in office. Like, what the heck are you even talking about?
I don't know. I hope there's not something major that we're not thinking about.
I don't know. This is Trudeau that we're talking about, so I'm pretty sure we're not mistaken.
Mr. Speaker, this from a Prime Minister who is helping Donald Trump take away our jobs. You can just imagine the President in the Oval Office calling our businesses to say, hey, I saw that you have a quadrupling carbon tax north of the border. Why not come south of the border where there's no carbon tax and other taxes are falling? How about the latest electricity tax the Prime Minister is bringing in that will drive factories south of the border, or his energy cap that will drive away our resource companies? I understand why President Trump wants to take Canadian jobs, but why is this Prime Minister trying to help him do it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The problem for the Leader of the Opposition is Canadians increasingly see through his shallow partisan games. If he actually cared about helping Canadians and cutting taxes, he wouldn't have voted against taking off the sales tax for Canadians for the next few months. Right. But he wants Canadians to continue to struggle because it benefits him politically, perhaps, instead of actually being there to solve the challenges Canadians are facing. That's why he voted against dental care for seniors. That's why he voted against a school food program. That's why he's voting against a sales tax break for Canadians for the next few months. That's not on, Mr. Speaker.
This is fascinating. The only people, and I mean the only people, that think that this GST holiday is a good idea are the Liberals and the NDP. That's it.
Canadians don't.
No. And National Post actually did a poll via Leger, and they actually found that a whole bunch of Canadians, I think it was 22%, were actually 3 times more likely not to vote for the Liberals because of this.
Yeah, because they see it as a stunt.
Right. And 7 out of 10 Canadians see this and the $250 check as nothing more than vote buying. That's it.
Because that's what it is.
So, as for Trudeau's claim that more and more Canadians are increasingly seeing through the Leader of the Opposition, then why did he rise to 43% in the aggregated poll and you guys dropped to 22% and the NDP dropped to 18%?
I wonder why.
Sounds like they're seeing through somebody, but it sure as heck isn't the Conservatives.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
The Conservatives showed us who they really are. They voted against tax relief for the working class. And the Liberals want to jack up taxes on the 15th. New Democrats believe the working class needs permanent relief. So will the Prime Minister permanently exempt the GST off of daily essentials, essentials like a kid's winter jacket.
So this is rich coming from Mr. Sellout himself. So he's saying, oh, the Conservatives didn't vote for this. So the NDP did, and now he's coming back to a question period and saying, well, will Justin Trudeau permanently take the taxes off stuff? That's called negotiating, genius. So if you actually wanted that, you probably shouldn't have voted for this in the first place and mandated that that actually be put into the bill. But you didn't. And now you're just saying, well, you know, can you do it after the fact, please?
Right, because the NDP has absolutely no strategy. Now, when he's talking about how Canadians want this tax and that it's helping the working people, I want to read you part of an email that we received from someone who asked to be anonymous. It says, we have hundreds of thousands of SKUs with descriptions that are hard to identify, and our IT team is struggling to implement systems to reduce the manual work for our cashiers. Now, this is from somebody who manages a big box store that will also go unnamed. Cashiers, many of whom are students or have English as a second language, will need to manually verify whether the tax was removed at the point of sale and manually remove it if it qualifies. This will be especially challenging and confusing during peak season, leading to more stress on employees and likely more disputes with customers over what qualifies for the tax cut.
And longer lines at the checkout counter because it's going to take them a long time to do it. And I feel for these cashiers.
Right. So how is this tax helping working people? It's not helping the stores. It's not helping the people who manage the stores. It's not helping the cashiers who have to know at the point of checkout what is tax exempt and what is not. And it's only for 2 months. Everybody's going to all this work for only 2 months. It's no wonder 3/4 of Canadians don't want this tax.
And here's the other impact that this will inevitably have. The more Canadians hear the reality of what a crap show this is going to be out in the retail world, the less Canadians are actually going to want to go out there and fight all these super long lines to actually make a purchase in the first place. So what you're actually causing is probably a complete net loss for all of these businesses. And Canadians aren't going to save a dime.
No, again, I spent $85 almost at the grocery store the other day and saved, or I spent $2.27 in HST, and here it's 13%. So if I lived in a province like Alberta where the GST is the sales tax and it's only 5%, it would have been half that.
Right. And you know, for Christmas dinner, we try and buy all fresh stuff to prepare. So guess what the HST savings would be on that? Oh, right. Nothing.
0.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister claims he's taking taxes off of fresh made produce. He really does. He really does think that food comes from the grocery store, not from the farmers who actually grow the produce. That's why he, I guess, thinks he can carbon tax those farmers without taxing the food. And then you have his friend, the Maserati Marxist over there in the. Carbon tax election.
Oh, I'm surprised I didn't get in trouble for that, or maybe we just haven't watched enough of it.
Maybe. Yeah. And because we're only going to show you as much of Jagmeet Singh as we think you need to see, you didn't actually see him try and chirp the Conservatives when he said, well, he was unhappy that they were heckling him, and he said, I don't know why the Conservatives are chirping. They're bootlickers for billionaires.
Says the guy with the Rolex.
Yeah, and the BMW and the Gucci bags.
And the Maserati that's somebody else's.
And the Armani suits and the Maserati that's somebody else's. He doesn't know who it is. He gets in a strange car driven by a strange person. But it's totally fine.
What a life.
So that was a great chirp back by
I am surprised he didn't get in trouble because you can call a caucus bootlickers, and depending how upset the House gets, you may not get in trouble, but you're not supposed to single people out like that. And that is in the Green Book. So I guess we'll have to see if Pierre gets reprimanded.
What I can say is that's probably going to be a name that's going to stick.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition had the opportunity to axe the sales tax for Canadians, and he voted against it and forced his MPs to do exactly the same. He is only interested in his own political self-interest, not interested in helping Canadians, either with a tax break for the next few months, or with dental care for vulnerable seniors across the country, or with more school food programs that'll help kids and parents afford their groceries. These are the kinds of things we're doing. These are exactly the things that he is blocking.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister says he's going to leave the economy to bankers. He says he doesn't think much about monetary policy, the budgets balance themselves, and that he's not very good with numbers, but he did get one thing right. He said that deficits cause inflation. So did his finance minister right before she introduced his budget, saying no deficit above $40 billion. So, straight up question, will the Prime Minister keep his word and cap the inflationary deficit below $40 billion?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I know the Leader of the Opposition is eager for our fall economic statement. If he really wants to see it, he could perhaps stop the obstruction of Parliament to allow us to move forward on dealing with Canadians and challenges that they are facing.
So could you.
Well,
handing over those documents.
Well, here's the thing, Trudeau. Pierre actually threw you an olive branch. Right before question period, he met with reporters and he said that he was willing to give Justin Trudeau 2 hours on their opposition day on Monday, starting at 4 o'clock. So you could put in your fall economic statement and you would be fine. But here's the interesting thing. So Chrystia Freeland was actually at a press conference the other day, and she was asked about the economic statement, and her answer was, well, let's just say it was revealing.
Just on the fall economic statement, for many years, the previous government did not introduce it in the House of Commons. There's no requirement that it be introduced in the House of Commons. So are you considering alternate locations, and if not, why not?
It's a very good question.
It is not surprising that Justin Trudeau, like his finance minister, doesn't really have an answer.
But it's interesting that he brought up inflation once again. He stopped talking about inflation after years of railing about it because we did the work to actually bring it down, Mr. Speaker. We invested in programs that were there to support Canadians, but that didn't contribute to inflation. Inflation is now back down in the target range. Interest rates are coming down. That's why we can give a tax break to Canadians. That's why we're there.
Okay, so if you believe Justin Trudeau, which nobody does, but if you believe Justin Trudeau, there was nothing they could do to stop inflation from rising, but once it was there, it was all of their work and all of what they did to bring inflation down. That's what they will have you believe.
I don't think that's accurate.